Morning. There's a lot of news going on, some funny, some not so funny, of course. It is 72 degrees here in the New York metro area. We're looking at severe weather threat ramping up here and across the nation, and also it looks like it's going to start getting hot again. There's your weather. Stay tuned for the news. We'll be right back. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm happy that you are here joining us today. It is, again, 72 degrees outside, going up to 82 degrees. Hey, we finally got those thunderstorms yesterday.
Finally.
The ones that were supposed to be the day before.
But I didn't get them.
No, you didn't get them?
No.
It only rained in Brooklyn, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to know. Did it look menacing?
Yeah, it looked menacing, even here. And then when I went back to Manhattan, I mean, I missed it. Maybe it was on the other side of town. It was just some sprinkles and rain coming down, but nothing dramatic.
I literally looked out. I've been in a tornado before, and I looked outside, and it was like yellow. There's a certain yellowness to the sky in a tornado. And I'm thinking, where is my buzzing phone that tells me when something bad is about to happen? There's nothing. And then there was, some heavy rainstorms happening in, at least on my side of town today. They're saying a little bit more rain, which we can kind of see now. But the forecast in general is that it's going to be going up toward the end of the weekend to 89, and then Monday 90s, all 90s next week. So it's going to get hot again for a little while, and then back down to our 81, 82, 83 toward the end of that week. So we're having a little bump, shall we say. The news is covering all kinds of things today. I really enjoyed the story about Chris Cuomo. Did you hear the story, Chris Cuomo?
No, tell me.
All right, I was not able to get the sound effect in time of Fredo saying, "I'm smart." You know, Fredo from The Godfather. His whole quote is, "I'm smart. I'm not dumb. I'm smart." Okay, so what happened is that Chris Cuomo, the news guy from CNN, younger brother of Andrew Cuomo, our governor here, who we called yesterday. By the way, he didn't return my call. Did he call you back, King?
Maybe he's going to surprise us and show up.
That would be awesome. I would be ready with my questions. We would definitely take callers, so prepare your calls for that. I was thinking, I wondered what it was like in the office yesterday when someone picked up that call. They're like, a radio program called us live to tell us on the air that and
it's like, oh, it's WBAI. Forget about it.
I don't think so, King.
Forget about it. Forget about it.
Oh, yeah, forget about it.
Forget about it.
Forget about it. Does this sound loud enough?
Forget about it.
By the way, that is a clip of a caller that used to call in regularly on the Julianna Forlano show when we were at 6 o'clock. I clipped this sound clip from his call.
Forget about it.
Okay, so we're all over the place.
Now see, I thought that was from The Godfather. I thought that was...
No, it's from Brooklyn.
From Brooklyn, okay.
Anyway, Chris Cuomo, I guess some guy called him Fredo somewhere when he was out with his family. And Chris Cuomo lit up and got all upset. There's a clip going all over the internet, and he said some things like... Not exactly like, "You want to take this outside," but something like, "I'll take you down," something like that, something ridiculous. And then it became this whole big thing, and Chris Cuomo went on the air and apologized or whatever. He apologized saying, I should have handled it better, etc. And then he started getting supported by people like Trump and Anthony Scaramucci, which, please don't speak for Italians, Anthony Scaramucci. I mean, good Lord, change your last name. He's an embarrassment to the group. People on Fox News were saying, yeah, he should have, and he should have taken the guy out, that kind of thing. Why should he have to apologize? Because we're living in a civil society. That's why he should apologize. Also, he is a person of note. He is a person of notoriety. I'm sorry, but when people are in the public eye, there is a certain responsibility for them to act in a way that they're going to be role models. Not that Trump would know about that. but he certainly is a role model for white supremacy and all these other horrible things that are just jumping up to the forefront instead of being in the background. Here's my take on it. And then here, King, I want to hear what you have to say about this. Maybe I think I might be just presenting this story to you, but I think it was Cuomo who said it's an Italian slur, which it's not. You call Fredo to anyone that you think is, not using all of their wits or whatever. It's not a slur against Italians. Italians watch that movie 100 times, The Godfather, and they have it all memorized, and maybe that's why it's connected. But you can call Fredo to anyone, basically, if you're trying to undermine their intelligence. Am I wrong, people? You can call in 212-209-2877. Then he said it was like using the N-word for Italians, which it's...
Calling somebody Fredo is like using the N-word.
Thank you.
Oh, this guy must have lived a pampered life as a Cuomo or something. I don't know where he got that from.
How is it possible?
There's no comparison at all.
What do you think, King?
Why do I think?
No, I mean, I'm just saying.
No, I mean, I know
I
know the slurs that are used against Italians, and that's not one of them.
Yeah, I know them too.
It's not one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I was trying to
Wow.
think when you just said that, if there's a word that black people would use to say that another black person is slow, or if a white person said it, they're saying, well, we're saying you're slow. We're not using a racial slur against you.
It's unfortunate, and we have a caller calling in, so we'll take the call, but...
Step and fetch it, maybe. He was slow. Pretended he was slow, actually.
Right. If you play into the stereotype, you'll get a spot on TV. If you're just a regular human being acting like a human being, you don't get on TV. Okay, so here's the other thought I had. Chris Cuomo has been living in the shadow of his brother. Who knows how he actually got his job? I've never heard of Chris Cuomo coming up in the media. The rest of the quote from Fredo is, Michael Corleone is asking him, why did you go against the family? And Fredo's like, well, the guy offered me something for me. It was in it for me. And Michael Corleone says, I've always taken care of you. Then Fredo goes off the rails and says, taking care of me? I'm smart. Not like everybody says. I don't want to just have a Mickey Mouse. So the fact is, Cuomo probably has been compared to Fredo his whole life. There's probably a soft spot for, like a painful spot living in the shadow of your father and in the shadow of, I don't know what that's like. I don't know what it's like to grow up in the shadow of someone who's a public figure. But it's interesting, he had a soft spot. What he needs is to let it go and be, say, I thought of a comeback for him. He should have said, yeah, well, maybe I am Fredo, but I do have a primetime show on CNN. Have a great day. Own it. Yeah. Own it.
The poor guy. I think this person touched on something that came up in his childhood. I hadn't even
Exactly.
thought of that connection, that he was the little brother that was pushed around. His big brother probably called him that all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. Or maybe his dad. We'll see. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, is that he probably had that pain. Anyway, this is not important in terms of news of what's going on. There have been... We're gonna turn over to talking a little bit about the police now. There's been 6 police officers were shot and injured in a standoff in Philadelphia, and right here, the 9th police officer, the 9th NYPD, either active or retired police officer, actually suicided over the last day. I don't know much about this, but I think it's interesting, and I think it's the kind of headline that bears reporting. The issue in Philadelphia is, the question becomes, if people with guns start shooting police officers, are we actually going to do something about the people with guns? If they're killing children, or if they're just killing random people in a Walmart in El Paso, or if they're killing young people. But when they start killing police, you think the nation is going to turn? You can call in with them. Talk about that, too. 212-209-2877. 212-209-2877. We're going to open up these phone lines. I've missed you because we've been doing so much content and so much fundraising, and we can talk about this throughout the course of the regular show. Now. I'm going to move over to something that happened to us. While we were at Netroots, we got the opportunity to talk to Joe Dinkin, who is with the Working Families Party. He's been on the show before, but the Working Families Party is now hosting a forum where they are talking to all the presidential candidates, and they're live streaming it. The first candidate they spoke to, which I thought was a good call, being the first one, either the first one or the last one, right? It was Elizabeth Warren, and we have some clips from their live stream. But I want to give you the interview we did with Joe talking about why they're doing this. They have not endorsed a candidate yet. You know, the Working Families Party can, when they throw their weight behind a candidate, move the needle. As we saw with Cuomo, we all, of course, wanted the Working Family Party to go against Cuomo in that first one. But, you know, things happened, and then the Working Family Party here in New York got railroaded. They really know what they're doing, the Cuomos. Except when they're faced with someone, you know, bringing up their childhood injuries in the youth. Okay, so here is Joe Dinkin.
Can you talk to us about what the Working Families is working on in advance of the 2020 election?
Sure, Juliana, thank you so much for having me on today. So the Working Families Party thinks it's really important that progressives get involved and ultimately make an endorsement in the 2020 primary.
Are you leaning?
Well, I'll tell you about our process in a second. But I think Wall Street donors and big corporations, they're going to pick a side. They're going to organize for what they want, and we can't be passive in that and just let it happen. So we've got a big field. It's pretty different than the 2016 dynamic. In 2016, it was pretty clear. Our members voted, 87% of them wanted Bernie Sanders, and it was pretty clear. Here, we're feeling like there's a much bigger field. People want to have some time to ask questions and push the candidates and learn more about them. So what we're doing is a member-led process. We've invited 6 of the candidates into a full member process. We're inviting Warren, Sanders, Harris, Booker, de Blasio, and Castro into our member process for member deliberations. They're each going to do a live-streamed interview with our members around the country. We're going to learn more about them, get to ask them questions.
Do you think those are the candidates that are most aligned with the Working Family Party's values?
Well, those are 6 candidates who all got included based on either their past record, current positions that they're talking about, because they have support within our membership base, or because we think they add something important to the conversation.
If people aren't familiar with the Working Families Party, can you give an idea of what the Working Families Party is and how people can get involved?
Sure, yeah. The Working Families Party is a national progressive grassroots political organization that's fighting to make America work for the many and not just a wealthy few. That means that we fight for economic fairness, we fight for racial justice, we fight for bold action on climate change that meets the scale of the crisis we're facing. But ultimately it means that we want a democracy that's actually responsive to the people and not just the power.
Oh, that sounds great.
People can get involved on our website at workingfamilies.org and just sign right up and join as a member. By joining as a member, you also get to participate in our presidential process and have a say in which out of those 6 candidates ends up getting selected to be the WFP candidate going into the Democratic primary. It's going to be one of the most important choices progressives get to make before the votes start getting cast in Iowa.
Can we talk about what is happening at the local level, the important races that we're seeing across the country?
Yeah, if 2019's races so far are any indication, 2020 stands to be a progressive watershed year. All over the country, WFP progressives are winning local races, starting in New York City, where we both live, where New York City public advocate Jumaane Williams won in his special election to fill that post. It's the city's number 2 job. He's a longtime tenants' rights activist and racial justice organizer, and he represents 8 million people of New York City. But it goes all over the city, from our sweep of the Milwaukee School Board to electing young, left, socialist people of color in Chicago. We actually swept the city council in Morgantown, West Virginia.
Wow.
Yeah. And, elected immigrants' rights organizer Carlos Garcia to the city council in Phoenix, and helped defeat a bunch of oil and gas Democrats in the Democratic primary for the Denver City Council. So all over the country, every region of the country, big cities, small towns, WFP progressives are having a ton of success, and it's super exciting to me.
So what you see on the ground as, a leader in this organization is not what we're hearing in the mainstream media. We're hearing Trump's going to win, Trump. White people love Trump.
Right.
People love Trump, no matter what he does.
No, it's true, and people don't always get to see, the national broadcast media's presidential race full time. Trump is the top story, Democratic primary is the second story, and nothing else gets heard at all. But there's a really incredible groundswell of movement progressives who are really fighting for big changes to the local level, whether that's, climate action or fighting to make it easier to join unions at the local level, or whether that's, fighting to defend public schools from privatization. We're seeing bold action step up and win at the local level, so that's what we're hoping to see in 2020.
Joe Dinkin, thank you so much for all the work you do. Thanks for being on our show. Where can people get more involved in Working Families Party?
People should check us out at workingfamilies.org. Follow us on Twitter at Working Families. Look us up on Facebook, Working Families Party, progressive party that fights for you.
Thanks for being here. You're watching
Joe Dinkin, he's the National Campaigns Director for the Working Families Party. Great guy, by the way. He's been on the show. Also very funny.
Impressive stuff. I was just looking at their victories in West Virginia. They've gotten people into the Senate and the House there, and that's great.
Yeah, and they try to push as progressive as possible. I think after they got burned, I'll make my own sound effect, burned, after they got burned with the Cuomo thing.
Feel the burn.
Oh, I have that one.
Yeah, right.
I'm not going to play it. It's too long. After they got burned here in New York with Cuomo, they supported Cynthia Nixon. So they have learned their lesson and are supporting, the most progressive candidates. And also, I believe if you're part of the party, you get to vote on who the party supports, and that's what's happening now. So the Working Families Party is doing a candidate forum, but not like all the candidates together at one time. They're giving each candidate an hour or more to talk about their party platform, and they're doing interviews from, with Nalini Stamp. I don't know if you know her. She's a great activist, just a great woman, but she's not like a top-level media personality. She's no Chris Cuomo, She's way better. And so it's great to have sort of normal activists, people part of the Working Families, people who are respected in the activist community, doing these interviews. The first one was 2 nights ago, and it's with Warren. Tonight they're doing Julian Castro. But I have some clips of the Warren interview. And this I'm playing these because I was really moved by what Bernie Sanders said on the Joe Rogan podcast when he said it's actually ridiculous and embarrassing for all the candidates to take the stage together and then just basically what I say is give the Republicans talking points. They're basically attacking each other, giving the Republicans talking points, and they're not able in that format to really get at the meat of the issue. So Warren started with painting a picture of who is benefiting and who's harmed in the current system. She talks about the lopsided ways those on the top continue to profit. And then she talks about how all that can change. And bless her heart, she is a former special education teacher. And so she can reach, just the way she can take concepts and make them understandable is amazing. Here she is.
For what it is. Why does this country work so well for those at the top and not for anyone else? Well, Donald Trump really understands the key to that, and that is turn working people against working people. Turn against them. If you have a problem in your life, says Donald Trump, blame it on them. Someone who doesn't look like you, someone who isn't the same color as you, someone who doesn't worship like you, someone who wasn't born where you were born. Blame them. And he figures it that way. So long as people are divided, so long as they're fighting with each other, then the rich and the powerful, they just keep raking it off the top. Well, I believe that most people in this country really want pretty much the same things. They want a chance to build a life. They want a chance to build some security. They want a chance to be able to give their children a real future. And I believe that when we make those investments together, we can make that happen in America. It's going to be big structural change that we're going to need. We're going to have to attack the corruption head on. And then we're going to have to make some structural change in this economy. We need more power in the hands of workers. That means make it easier to join a union and give unions more power when they negotiate. We also need an economy where everybody pays a fair share. And I've proposed a wealth tax. That's a 2-cent tax on the top 0.1%. Your first 50 million, you get to keep free and clear. But your 50 millionth and first dollar, pitch in 2 cents. And 2 cents for every dollar after that. And you know what we can do with that? We can do universal child care. We can do universal pre-K for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old. We can raise the wages of every child care worker and preschool teacher in this country. We can do universal college for every one of our kids. We can invest $50 billion into historically black colleges and universities, level the playing field a little, and we can cancel student loan debt for 95% of the kids who've got it.
It, 2 cents on the 50 million seems small, but I got to do the
It's a
calculation and see.
She seems accurate in her
Yeah, I got to check it out.
calculations, etc. But yeah, I mean, the fact is that when you don't see candidates start off their speeches talking about preschool teachers, and I think that's a change that maybe we could all get behind. The idea that children, women's issues can be, we are 52% of the population. That's a majority. I think these issues can be at the forefront of our voting, our voting systems. And Warren goes on to paint the picture of how she feels change happens. She was asked about it, and this is what she said.
I'm not running for president just to talk about change. I'm running for president to make change. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole heart of this for me. So, I have a lot of plans. You've heard that. And yes. I get teased a lot about that.
We're fully aware.
But here's the deal. Yep. When you make your plans clear and then you win on those plans, that has an effect on your own party mm-hmm. and an effect on the other party. Because it gives you the capacity to say, hey, nobody was fooled here. I told you exactly what I wanted to do. I told you we ran on a 2-cent wealth tax. We ran on strengthening the hands of unions. We ran on canceling student loan debt. So now it's time to get this done. That's part one.
Okay.
Part two is to recognize we have a dysfunctional Congress. Mm-hmm. And this idea that we're going to have a Senate that still runs with a filibuster, so it takes 60 votes to get anything done. We cannot continue to give in to the folks who just don't want to get anything done. Our job, my job, is going to be from the first to say, if Mitch McConnell's still in there trying to play the same games he played against President Obama, time to get rid of the filibuster. That strengthens the hand of the president, and it also strengthens the hand of the people who want work done. I'll just say off to the side, we talk about guns, for example. I was in the Senate in 2013 when 54 people in the Senate voted for background checks and to get rid of assault rifles. You may recall that meant it failed because it didn't make the 60-vote threshold. Time to do away with that. But then the third part, and that is, how do you hold Congress really accountable? That's what movements are all about. That's why right now I am doing everything I can to build a grassroots movement. I don't go behind closed doors with millionaires. I don't spend my time with corporate CEOs. I spend my time here. I've had town halls now in 25 states plus Puerto Rico. I've been to lots of red states as well as blue states and lots of red areas within purple states, all reaching out to people and not just saying, here's a good idea, here's a good person to vote for, but saying, be part of this. Pitch in $5, volunteer an hour, come and join us and bring a neighbor, bring a friend, bring your sister, talk to your uncle about this. Because if we build that kind of movement, that's our comparative advantage come November 2020. But more importantly, that's how we hold Congress accountable come January 2021.
And I love the way she talked about plans, and she clarified the reason that you have to put your plans out there, because then, I mean, it's so beautiful, and I haven't heard anyone say that. It sounds to me like she plans to actually do her plans, and she's running on her plans so that she can have the grassroots who hopefully, if they support her, if she gets in, if she gets the nomination, will push for those plans, or even better plans than the plans that she has. Although some of her plans are very, very good, kind of plans we don't We don't hear about very often. So I thought that was a really great set of clarity. Now, we don't see a lot of plans coming out of the office of Joe Biden, for example. Specifically, I have no idea what he's standing for other than I've done this before and maybe everyone will vote for me just because they know my name and they don't want Trump. I don't know what his actual plans are. I'm certain they're not going to be as progressive, shall we say, as an Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, et cetera. So what are your thoughts about that, about clarity in, hey, I'm running on this?
I think he's not worried about that because he thinks that the corporations are going to flex their muscles and they're going to just push him in. I mean, I don't even think he's as popular as the polls are really saying. I don't trust the polls. They've pushed these before. And then just I went back to look, and it looks like Warren's tax plan is going to generate $275 billion a year if it's passed and carried out. So now I'm working on this a step at a time. So I'm going to try to see what $275 billion, whether that's really enough to change wealth. It's a lot of money, but it's half of the military budget. So it would be like cutting the military from 50% of our current budget to 25%. And it would probably move like 2 or 3% to each of the categories, health, education, welfare. So it looks like it would be a big bubble, but I'm not sure if it would transform. But I'm going to keep looking at it.
As long as the bubble comes more from the top than it does from what Trump did, which is raise everyone's taxes, basically, bring making poor and middle class people afford, no corporate taxes, no taxes on the rich or very little.
Yeah.
And not enforced. And now, I don't have to tell anyone who's watching any other show other than this one, there's signs that we're coming to a recession. Why don't they ever say depression anymore?
They should say depression.
They should say, was it not a depression?
Like a big ass depression.
You just check the board to see if you could say ass. I got this. So you can just let me know and I'll
Okay.
Yeah, no, they're saying that there was a sign yesterday that usually happens, a flip in long-term yields and short-term yields. We're going to talk about that with Dean Baker, who's coming on tomorrow to give the details of that. But basically that flip has happened right before major recessions and depressions, the last 9 times they have happened. Professor Wolf always talks about how boom and bust is part of capitalism, and perhaps that's something we want to look into when we are considering what systems or what abatements to the systems we have here in our country. So that is happening, and I think maybe Elizabeth Warren's plan would maybe hopefully correct for what Trump is obviously bringing on. I mean, the fact that he's like, we've got a great economy, and I know so many people who are working, who are highly educated and serving coffee or whatever they're doing, or can only find a part-time job or trying to make it work on the internet. I don't know whose economy this is good for. Anyway, she also talked about how capitalism and racism are intertwined. And then she talked about this using, the lens of the housing market. But she has a plan to throw a wrench into it. Here it is.
So I've got a proposal paid for that's nearly $500 billion in putting it into housing. It's about 3.2 million new housing units across this country. It's for a whole spectrum of housing, encourages communities to work together on housing, has lots of different ways to do this. The independent estimate, is it would bring down rents by about 10% across the board and would help first-time buyers get in. But it also has a second feature to it that's special, and that is the recognition that for generations, one of the ways that working families have built wealth has been through housing. They bought a home and it appreciated over time. And if you were lucky and grandma and grandpa could stay there till they died, then the next generation got a boost and the next generation after that. So it's no surprise that starting long, long ago, America subsidized the purchase of homes for white people and discriminated against the purchase of homes for African Americans. In communities of color, they redlined and said, nope, going to discriminate against housing there. And as a result, you see a gap, not only in who owns homes, but a gap in wealth. And that gap lasts generation after generation after generation. So part of my housing plan is to acknowledge what happened with redlining, how we still see the effects of it, and to say, I'm going to set aside a part of what we're doing on housing in order to help remedy that and to give people who've lived in formerly redlined areas assistance to be first-time homebuyers, people who were ripped off during the financial crisis, some assistance so they can be homeowners again and start building that wealth for themselves and for their children and for their grandchildren.
Here's what she had to say about flipping the script on the power dynamic between corporations and American workers.
We need power in the hands of workers. The best way to do that is make it easier to join a union and give unions more power when they negotiate. So you asked me about the different tools available. How about we'll start out with, oh, I love saying this, what a president can do all by herself. Part one, how about we get a Secretary of Labor who's on the side of labor? You know, this really, I mean, this is important. We kind of laugh, but it's true. You know as well as anyone, all of the regulations that get written around what constitutes a bargaining unit and what constitutes an unfair labor practice, that the regulatory part of this starts in the Department of Labor. And the charge to the Department of Labor is to help workers, not to be on the side of business, management, opposed to labor. So I commit that we will have a Secretary of Labor, not just who's on the side of labor, but who's aggressively on the side of labor. Someone who understands what it means to working people to be out there on the lines every day. And this is so critically important at a time when we need to strengthen union membership into new areas where it hasn't been before. So this is partly about areas where we've had union membership before, but we're moving in, especially in a gig economy, how it is that we're able to bring more people into the union movement. So I think part one is to get a really good Secretary of Labor. Part two is there are laws we're going to need to get through Congress and real change. And I'm ready to tackle right to work or right to work for nothing or whatever you want to call it. I think that this is something we should look at the federal level. This idea that states can just cripple local unions and then use that as a way to compete for business around the country. Hey, they say to a big corporation, move to my state, because my state is going to give workers even less power. That's a federal issue, and we need to be making change at the federal level. I think that's critically important. Third part is the investment in jobs. You know, we put more into jobs, and it makes a big difference. I'm going to hit this one, if I can, just from a little bit of an angle. I strongly support the Clean New Deal. I believe that as a country, we need to get to net zero by 2030. I believe we could do that. The problem is, even if America gets there, we're only 20% of the problem. You got 80% of the problem around the world. So the best estimate is that there's an upcoming $23 trillion market for green energy, green products, desalinization, how to clean carbon out of the air, how to clean carbon out of the water. And much of this stuff hasn't been invented yet. So I have a plan to make huge investments in what we do best, research and development, to come up with the new ideas to save our planet. But at the same time, to say to all the world, you can use all these great ideas we've got if you build it right here in the United States of America.
And we're back. That was Elizabeth Warren speaking at the Working Family Parties Forum. I like how she said, I commit. I know they all lie. I wasn't just born yesterday. And I would like to find, Bernie's been on the level for, he doesn't mince words, really. But I would like to, I like that the plans are out there. I like that she's saying she's committing to this. And maybe she can do what Obama told us he was going to do, which is ride in on a tide swell of, grassroots support and then, keep us in the loop. And, he did say, oh, you have to make me. But I don't think we knew that just yet. I don't think there was this tide. Plus, I used to get all kinds of calls from quote unquote Joe Biden on recording. And, Michelle would give us an email while he was running. And then after he got in, I heard nothing. I did not hear anything.
Do we have a crickets?
Oh,
Yeah,
we need the crickets.
We need crickets.
No.
Okay.
Oh, I do have the crickets. Where are they? Oh, how about a child crying? That's what. Oh, God. Well, I get that enough at home. You're listening to Waking Up. I'm Julianna Forlano. We're going to take a quick musical break. We are going to take your calls in the second half of the show. I know some folks called in to talk about some of the things we talked about at the beginning. And so we're going to take, but we moved on to Elizabeth Warren. And so now we'll be taking your calls about anything you want to talk about and those topics after we get back from the musical break. So our number is 212-209-2877. Here's some music and we'll be right back.
Here we go. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved.
build walls, we'll grow wings. You can't keep us down because we're queens and kings.
interviews that they are streaming with the candidates that they might endorse. And that's not all of the candidates. They're only picking the ones that they could possibly endorse. The first one they did is Elizabeth Warren. I have some more clips, but we're going to take some callers right now. Caller, you wanted to talk about how Bernie Sanders is not covered the way you think he should be. Your name and where are you calling from?
Oh, my name is Nzinga. I'm calling from Uptown Harlem, and I'm actually not calling about Bernie, but I actually wanted to call and tribute to a writer who just passed, and I had a small poem that I wanted to share, a recent excerpt. And so
are we talking about Tony?
It's interesting because
who are you talking about? What writer?
I'm talking about Michelle Johnson. We were members of Women Writers in Bloom Poetry Salon, and she passed about a week before Toni Morrison, and who's also a writer. And so I think the poem works in a way for both writers.
Can you do me a favor? Will you record the poem and send it to me at juliana@WBAI.org? That's my email address, and I will play it on the air when we have a specific time that's important to that. We have a couple people who want to call in and talk about the things that we've been talking about on the show, so I do ask you to do that, and I will play it. But thanks for calling in. I appreciate it, Michelle. Again,
okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for doing that, and I'll be happy to give it some air time, especially depending on the topic. We like to push all our topics together. So if we're talking immigration, we're talking immigration. If it's a poem about that, we'll put it that. If it's about women's issues, if it's about love, whatever it is, we'll play it. So thank you very much. Caller, you are on the air. Your name and where you're calling from.
Yes, hello. My name is John. I'm calling from Long Island.
Hey, John.
Yes, I like what you're talking about, the Green New Deal. I think that needs to be talked about more. And Elizabeth Warren, I don't think her record is too hot on a lot of things. And like you said, she's talking about the Green New Deal, but they lie to get elected. And I wish you'd talk more about Bernie Sanders because I don't think he's being covered as much as he should be.
Well, we will be talking about Bernie Sanders. Thanks for the call, John. I appreciate that. We will be talking about Bernie when he gives his speech at the Working Families Party. We are going to play that. So I'm basically following what they are doing on our show here today, and that's who they did so far. I would be interested in what it is about Elizabeth Warren's record that you take issue with, because I don't like these just kind of, King is teaching me, where's the beef? I want these regular,
where's the tofu?
Yeah, where's the tofu? Yeah, that's right. Where's the seitan?
Satan.
Strips.
Satan. Oh.
No, I want the
clip for that?
Vegetarian meat. I think we do have that. We have this.
That's close.
A nice evil laugh.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, but I want to make sure that let's not do what Republicans do and just the right wing does and just say, hey, I don't like her because I just don't. Her record's not good. Well, whose record is good in politics? I think we have to kind of grow up and recognize that politics is a dirty business, but she is giving us the lever to push her. She's saying, I commit to this. I'm not taking corporate donations. These are respectable things. I'm sure she and one of them's not going to be at the top, and so all of the voters for the other are going to hopefully go to the other, and then we'll have a winning candidate, one or the other. So we'll see. That's my prediction on that front, on the progressive wing front. We have other callers wanting to call in and talk about the different issues we talked about today. Caller, you are on the air. Your name and where you're calling from.
Good morning.
Hi.
This is Saul from Richmond Hill.
Hi, Saul.
There's been mention, and you're not the only one, it's been flying around a lot, talking about police suicide.
Yeah.
And there's a piece that's being left out of the conversation. There was a nation that had a big problem with police suicide, and when they began to address it, they also let one of their freedom fighters go. It was South Africa. One of the problems with the police suicide there, because the cops used to make kids raise their hands, and they called it winging the Kaffir. They used to raise their hand. Kids would raise their hand, and they shoot the tendon out from under their arm. And what it is the cops couldn't deal with their own nightmares. And they began to be tortured by their own nightmares of the evil that they did during the day, and they began to shoot themselves. So what we have here is a police force throughout this nation, which I call the force police, because they basically are cutting the hands and the lives out of our families. What they do is this blue wall of silence. Well, at night they have to face the evils that they've supported, and they can't deal with the truth.
Saul, good
And
point.
that's not being addressed. That we need to follow history, and sadly, I got to add this to the conversation. You mentioned a program, RPM, or what is it, revolutions per minute.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the gentleman made a statement about not wanting to read too much. If you read enough and read our history and faced it, he would be able to also talk about.
Wait, he said he doesn't want to read too much? I didn't hear him say that, so I can't account for that.
It was a program this week.
Okay, well, I don't want to talk about what's happening on other people's programs, but I think your first point was really important.
I'm involved a lot in education. A lot of young people are not reading enough or reluctant to read.
Well, the education system is, is not great.
So I'm going to jump in. I appreciate your point. I like the things that you were saying. I think the issue is alienation. My guide was Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon, who talked about the fact that not only were the people who were being oppressed in Algeria, were they coming to him for psychological and psychiatric help, but those who were perpetuating the violence, the police and the army, were also doing the same thing. So I agree with your point, and they are bringing this stuff home. And another part of it that's not being spoken about is some of them are killing themselves, but others are attacking their wives and their partners. And so,
yeah, that's right.
So
you see that with soldiers also.
So I hope that when they address this, that they'll treat it as seriously as the victims that they're creating, and also take care of that side of the coin too. So thanks for that.
And King, also, it's another thing where you have, like, you and I, we cross each other's path. You know, young people who belong to a gang, and it's that gang mentality where you don't want to face the fact that you're doing something wrong, and that goes for the blue gang and the green gang. You know, like the army. They've done evil things, and they don't want to face the fact that you've done something wrong and atone for it. You'd be better off and healthier for it.
Yeah, atonement, that is a possibility. We never talk about that in our country. We never talk about the fact that if you've done something, you can atone, you can make an amend, you can work the rest of your life to make sure no one else does the thing that you do. Killing yourself is not a good way to atone.
And since he mentioned green, he mentioned the army, that there has been an issue with depression, and it hasn't boiled down yet to suicides among drone operators who are committing these acts and blowing up places, and the idea that they're sitting in Nebraska,
New York. A lot of them are
in Syracuse and all that is
hometown.
Still having a bad effect on them. And the problem is that they're not on some army base somewhere. They're out in the general population, so we have to be careful when they express their depression.
212-209-2877 is our phone line. We are open and taking your calls this morning. We're talking about, well, all the different topics. We talked about so many. Elizabeth Warren herself talked about very many. 212-209-2877. Caller, you are on the air. Your name and where you're calling from. Hello, are you there? I see the red light lit up, but no voice at the end. Are you there, caller? Hello? Anybody? No? Old-timey telephone, remember that? Okay, that's okay. We can move on. Not a problem. If you were trying to call in and something happened, you can give us back a call and we'll take you again. Now, Warren also talked about the issue of mass incarceration. Not only does she promise to end federal prisons if she is elected, she also talked about her experiences at the border that, well, you'll see in this clip, they strengthened her resolve to end the detention of migrants.
I've been down to the border. I went down shortly after it came out, more than a year ago now, that our federal government, in our name, using our money, was separating children from their families. I went down to see it for myself. I saw what looked like a giant Amazon warehouse, only it smelled bad. And I saw the cages, cage after cage after cage of men, maybe 10 feet wide, 40 foot deep, a toilet back in the corner, men packed in so tightly they couldn't all lie down at the same time. Cages on the other side of women. And then the part that would just tear your heart out, back in the main room, cages of little girls, just freestanding cages with a guard tower in the center with no one in it but little girls. Then cages of little boys. Back in the corner, a big cage of nursing mothers. I stopped and I visited with some of these mothers who told me, I remember one who said that she had given a drink of water to a police officer and that the word had then gone back that she was helping the police, and the gangs heard that, and she knew that meant she and her baby would die. So she wrapped up her baby and ran for the border. Those are the people who are coming to our borders seeking help. They're people now in the United States seeking asylum, seeking refugee status. And yet, we have an immigration system that is putting huge resources into tracking down people who pose little or no threat to us. A system that cannot understand the difference in the threat posed by a criminal, a terrorist, and a 12-year-old child, a mama running with her baby, is a system that is broken and needs to be reformed from beginning to end. And I will do that as President of the United States. We need a system that keeps us safe and that aligns with our values. We need to live our values every single day. I believe that as a country, we need to get to net zero by 2030. I believe we could do that. The problem is, even if America gets there, we're only 20% of the problem. You got 80% of the problem around the world. So the best estimate is that there's an upcoming $23 trillion market for green energy, green products, desalinization, how to clean carbon out of the air, how to clean carbon out of the water. And much of this stuff hasn't been invented yet. So I have a plan to make huge investments in what we do best, research and development, to come up with the new ideas to save our planet. But at the same time, to say to all the world, you can use all these great ideas we've got if you build it right here in the United States of America. I've been down to the border. I went down shortly after it came out, more than a year ago now, that our federal government, in our name, using our money, was separating children from their families. I went down to see it for myself. I saw what looked like a giant Amazon warehouse, only it smelled bad. And I saw the cages, cage after cage after cage of men, maybe 10 feet wide, 40 foot deep, a toilet back in the corner, men packed in so tightly they couldn't all lie down at the same time. Cages on the other side of women. And then the part that would just tear your heart out, back in the main room, cages of little girls. Just freestanding cages with a guard tower in the center with no one in it but little girls. Then cages of little boys. Back in the corner, a big cage of nursing mothers. I stopped and I visited with some of these mothers who told me, I remember one who said that she had given a drink of water to a police officer and that the word had then gone back that she was helping the police, and the gangs heard that, and she knew that meant she and her baby would die. So she wrapped up her baby and ran for the border. Those are the people who are coming to our borders seeking help. They're people now in the United States seeking asylum, seeking refugee status. And yet, we have an immigration system that is putting huge resources into tracking down people who pose little or no threat to us. A system that cannot understand the difference in the threat posed by a criminal, a terrorist, and a 12-year-old child, a mama running with her baby, is a system that is broken and needs to be reformed from beginning to end. And I will do that as President of the United States. We need a system that keeps us safe and that aligns with our values. We need to live our values every single day.
And that was Elizabeth Warren, obviously. I think you've known her voice already by now. She's speaking at the Working Families Party Forum. Tonight, they are giving the same length of time, same opportunity to Julian Castro. So that would be interesting. We'll see if we can bring you some clips from that as well. I misspoke. She did not promise to end federal prisons. When I said that, King lit up like, what? Hallelujah! That's some crazy miracle. But she's
right.
promising to...
She's promising to end private federal prisons and private federal detention centers, which would be a good thing.
Yes. So still a plus on that.
Definitely.
Hey, you're listening to Waking Up. We appreciate your telephone calls. We were not able to get... Well, she was not able to join us. Celeste from Driving Forces couldn't come today. But she is having a very special edition tonight at 5 p.m. It is her last in-studio show before she moves away to get married. Jeff says he's going to cry on the air, so this should be a great show. I'm not sure what topics they're talking about, but we will miss her. Alana, is she coming back? Or is she going to do her show from far away? That's it? So. Who's going to fill in for Julianna Forlano when she's not here? Oh, that is so sad. We should be having a party. On the show, Dean Baker will be joining us tomorrow to talk about the crash, the impending crash. What do you do, King? Put the money under the mattress?
Yeah, that's it. Keep it in your sock.
You were saying at the beginning when we were talking off air that people, you were telling people that you listen to Bloomberg every so often. Don't judge, but you know.
No, the New York Times is finally starting to soft pedal the idea that, there may be something coming. It's likely going to come. And here are a couple of things you could do. Manage your portfolio. Well, 90% of people in the country don't have a portfolio. But I listen to Bloomberg because they tell truth to power, and they're talking to the 1% and their underlings. And they've been talking about this since the middle of 2018.
Tom Hartman wrote a whole book about it. He's been talking about it. He says buy gold, but I don't,
So y'all should pay attention tomorrow because we're going to be really laying it out, and you should make your plans.
Yeah, make your plans. Maybe don't buy a house for now, I'd say. Well, aren't they cheaper when it crashes? Hey, we could get Elizabeth Warren in there. She said she's going to help us buy houses. Or help you, I guess. Help folk so that we can have wealth accumulation through the generations. Adjudicate for what wasn't allowed in the past. Sounds interesting. Don't know if she's going to be able to do it. Yeah. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy this day. It's going to be up to 81 degrees. This has been Waking Up with Julianna Forlano and King Downing. King, have a great day.
You too.
All right.
Stay dry.
I will.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Hi, this is Virginia White of Earth, Wind & Fire, and you're listening to The Sweet Spot on WBAI.
Hi, this is